We are very curious to see, how long the EBC is going to take to change those boundaries in Tobago because we're moving from 9 to 15 seats. That's a whole 6 seats. And there are people who are already saying that this is going to be this is going to be in favor of the PNM because how the island is and where the concentration of people are in the West, and Tobago West, they believe, is a safer seat for the People's National Movement. So we'll speak about all of that with the political leader of the Tobago PNM Council, Tracy Davidson Celestin. Good morning to you, Mrs. Celestin.
Good morning to you, Natalie, and good morning to all of Trinidad and Tobago.
And thank you so much for joining us. Special good morning to the people in Tobago. I hope you know we do have on Thursdays, we have a whole hour for Tobago here on the No Morning Show.
On Thursdays?
Yes, so you
well,
should invite everybody.
Ready.
Invite all Tobagonians to tune in on Thursday. Oh, sorry, y'all didn't tell me you changed my camera, man. I made me looking so and me so. All right, morning, yes. Right, so on Thursdays, in the first hour, we pay particular attention to what's happening in Tobago. But because Tobago's so hot these days, we're having you Wednesday and we're having Tobago Thursday again.
Well, very good, very good. I like that the focus is on Tobago as well, because at the end of the day, it's Trinidad and Tobago.
Amen.
So you want to give the people of Tobago an opportunity to express their thoughts as well and to be heard.
And we've since learned that we're not looking any secession contrary to popular belief. So I'm happy that we're still the sister isle, we're still the twin island state of Trinidad and Tobago. But talk to us. We know that the THA Act has been proclaimed, and that means that there will be an election coming up in Tobago, as early as next year, January, February, maybe even before, depending on how long it takes the EBC to change those boundaries. Now, the EBC did work in Tobago for the 2021 election, so I don't know that this might take so long, but what are those boundary changes? Are we concerned? Is the People's National Movement concerned that, the changes in boundaries may favor a political party, as we're hearing some people saying?
Well, the thing is, we don't know yet what the outcome will be. Of course, you know that the EBC is an independent body and they do their work, and of course, they will lay their report to the parliament. I have not seen the last report that was laid in terms of the Tobago boundaries and in terms of the Tobago situation, but it's an opportunity now for me to do that kind of research. But as I sit here, Natalie, I am not able to say whether the boundaries will favor the PNM or whether they will favor the other parties that will be contesting in the upcoming Tobago House of Assembly election. So I think it's too early to be presumptuous. Of course, there are those who would have their own agendas and who would want to put very early into the mix that the situation might not favor them, and would try to carry forth a conversation as to suggest that the PNM wants to ensure that they put something in place to favor the People's National Movement. But it's too early for that. Let us wait to see what the result of the report would be. And then again, the EBC is largely independent in its outlook, and I'm sure that it will take all of the necessary factors and relevant factors into consideration in terms of making its decisions.
Right. The last campaign that we saw from the political parties, to me, had a lot of mudslinging. And I think that the general Tobago population suggested that it did not want that and that it wanted questions answered. Because we saw when we had the town hall meetings that people were genuinely interested in getting issues resolved. For the People's National Movement, what will be the tone of the campaign going forward? Because I think this is an opportunity to do over.
Well, the thing is, Natalie, we have always been very focused on the issues. Largely, we have put forward what the People's National Movement has done as the administration and what is it that they will plan to do going forward. Of course, there are some who believe, especially opposition politics, that they have to attack individuals in the election, and we saw that coming forth in loud noise from the PDP, and of course indicating to the population of Tobago and the population of Trinidad and Tobago that there were untoward arrangements from the People's National Movement administration And we later found out that those allegations are not true at all, that they are largely unfounded, and those will be dealt with eventually. But by and large, I just want to make the point, and in essence, the People's National Movement, Tobago Council has always focused on the issues.
I mean, but you can't discount that, an audited finance is not an issue. To me, that is an issue. And if the PDP wanted to run with it, then to me it is so entitled. Because when you're talking about the Auditor General's report, it is talking about how things have been handled. And to me, that's a good campaign point. It's
But
something that you
yes,
can campaign on.
it perhaps is a good campaign point, but of course you have to stick to what is included in the Auditor General's report. You can't indicate to the public that the Auditor General report or the Auditor General has said when it is not documented anyway. And that is the challenge in this particular instance, because all was said. The political leader did this, Tracy did that, etc., but it is documented nowhere in any of the Auditor General report. And so that was very wrong. And of course, we are talking about lying to the population of Tobago and to the population of Trinidad and Tobago in the process.
Uh, one of the things that I think the People's National Movement did in the last THA election that did not favor the people was in its choice of candidates. We saw that there were candidates that were chosen that the people did not want. And I remember asking you about that, at the time after the election, if you would have done things differently. And it's something I'm asking you again. Are you going to be listening to who the people are asking for in the various areas that you all go campaigning in and in the choice of candidates? Are you going to be choosing who the people are asking for?
Well, well, that's a very good question. And let me say that there is some tightening up to be done in terms of the selection process. And so there are lessons to be learned from the last election, the last Tobago House of Assembly election. And we will be looking at all of those different factors. And of course, as I said, we will be tightening up on our arrangements going forward.
Yeah, one of the issues I know the people of Tobago had as well is the delivery of services. If the People's National Movement forms the THA again, what is it going to do to tackle that particular issue of getting things in a timely manner to the people where they don't have to feel like, they're begging for handout or like you're doing them a favor instead of just delivering services as you're supposed to as a political entity? All right, we seem to have lost
Hello?
Mrs. Tracy Davidson Celestine.
Are
Do
you
we have
there?
her back?
Yes, I'm
Okay,
here.
yeah.
Like there was a challenge.
Right, I was asking about the delivery of services. That's one of the areas that the people pointed out that there seems to be this thing where political parties act as if they're doing the people of Tobago a favor, and it is so hard sometimes to get, services. So if the People's National Movement form the THA again, what is it going to do to deal with that issue?
Well, the delivery, well, let me put the thing in context, Natalie. I think that in large part, the people of Tobago and Trinidad and Tobago are very fortunate. When you look at the kind of services that we roll out in the Tobago context, we basically take care of all of the needs and all of the demands of the people on the island. When you compare the kind of services that are offered in Tobago to what is offered perhaps in the region, some of our Caribbean countries, they are largely non-existent. And so as a people on an island, 60,000, we have been very favored by the Tobago House of Assembly in terms of some of the things that we offer. Let us look, for instance, at things having to do with home repair grants. I am not certain that there are any such services existing in any of the Caribbean countries but issued by the government at this time where home repairs are concerned. Yet in the Tobago House of Assembly, led by a PNM administration, all persons who qualify would receive a grant of minimum $15,000 right up to $50,000, depending on the circumstances. So if it is that you are now constructing a home and you need things like windows and doors, the Tobago House of Assembly sponsors that as well. Let us look at education. In addition to the GATE program that is administered by the government of Trinidad and Tobago, there are other scholarship arrangements in the Tobago House of Assembly, largely from the Division of Education and Innovation, that the people of Tobago can apply for as an addition to what is being offered. The point I am making, Natalie, is that the services that we offer in Tobago are non-existent in the rest of the Caribbean. From the Division of Health, Wellness, and Family Development,
And maybe that's why
or
people, and maybe that's why there's this discrepancy because people feel as if, maybe because we're getting these things, you're all acting like you're doing us a favor because nobody else in the Caribbean has it.
well, I don't know that we're doing them a favor. I know that the People's National Movement is responding to the needs of the people out there in the communities and ensuring that the different sectors are well taken care of in our policy planning and in our implementation going forward. So we have programs that treat largely with the vulnerable from the Division of Education, from the Division of Health, Wellness, and Family Development. We are in a pandemic at this time, and the Tobago House of Assembly has put aside monies to deal with food support. It has put aside monies to deal with rental assistance so that at the end of the day, we could ensure that people have a roof over their heads. When I do my research in the rest of the Caribbean, those kind of things are non-existent. We even go as far as to assist persons with general appliances and things that are needed, things like stove and bed and fridge to make a family living more comfortable and more appropriate. And so, in large part, when you compare the kind of services that we offer in Tobago and perhaps in Trinidad and Tobago to what exists in the rest of the Caribbean, it's really chalk and cheese, Natalie. And that is because the People's National Movement wants to ensure that we take care of the needs of the people. And the thing is, we're not to take those things for granted because that is a People's National Movement administration policy. We don't know if any other party coming into office will continue with those programs. Those are largely our social programs that we have implemented because we want, at the end of the day, to respond to the needs and the demands
You
of the
know,
people out there.
Mrs. Celestine, everybody in the studio laughing because it sounds like you're campaigning.
No, I'm not campaigning, but if I am, I'm sure there is nothing wrong with that because, of course, the season has started.
Right. So is the People's National Movement already on the ground in Tobago?
We have never left the ground, Natalie. We have never left the ground. From since the last general election, we have been out there talking to our people, ensuring that we provide the basics to them in this very, very difficult time. Food hampers and support, pointing them in the direction of accessing mental health assistance from the divisions and all the other divisions that would so provide those kind of services. So we have never left the ground, Natalie.
Well,
And so we are there with people.
the last election results was 6-6, which is what brought us to where we are. But now, after the EBC will do it, finalize its work, of course, the Prime Minister did indicate that they will debate, the EBC report with dispatch. So as I said, we are expecting elections by early next year, maybe by December, January, February, in that general area. But the last results is 6-6, which suggested to me that even though you speak so glowingly of the People's National Movement, is that the people in Tobago don't feel that way. Otherwise, we would not have ended up with the 6-6. So, Mrs. Celestine, if you had to look at one thing that you had to change, one thing, just one, that you had to change to get the people to move those numbers, what do you think that thing will be that will move those numbers for the People's National Movement?
Well, Natalie, you pointed to one of it, and largely it has to do with probably our selection process and all of the factors were not taken into consideration. in the process. We, of course, at the screening level thought it was a very rigorous one. But of course, you know that we can only choose one candidate at the end of the day, and the others that are not chosen may, view things in a particular way. And so we have to manage that process better going forward. We continue to communicate with the Tobago public in terms of the things that we have done for them. We are on the ground with the people. And so we expect that with that kind of mix of approach that we have, that the position for the People's National Movement will be more improved in this upcoming Tobago House of Assembly elections.
All right. Well, we wish
And
you
I think, Natalie, just to add to what you have said, I think when I listen to the people of Tobago, what they want in large part is predictability. What they want is stability, even in a time of unpredictability with the COVID-19 virus. When I listen to the people, I hear them saying that we prefer the PNM because you all have been largely consistent and everyone is basically on the same page. When we listen to those on the other side, what we hear from them is independence. What we hear from them is cessation. And that is, of course, very frightening and worrying to the people of Tobago. And then again, you have this situation where all of the leaders speak from a different paper. They are not consistent in their approaches. The political leader is saying one thing, Farley is saying another thing, Faith is saying, and so the People's National Movement has brought to the table consistency, predictability. It has been treating with the needs of the people of Tobago, and we are largely on the ground walking and talking with the people. So at the end of the day,
you know what, Tracy, let me play devil's advocate. Maybe one can say the thing is that you have three voices on the PDP. At least we have three people on the PDP speaking. Only you alone we're hearing, so maybe that's why they're allowed to have different stories, because we have three people on that side speaking.
Well, I don't know that you're hearing me alone. I know that all of the members of the assembly have been largely very vocal in all of the discussions. Last night, for instance, we had the Secretary of Finance on set. I think that was with Channel 5, and we have had them, going to different media houses talking about the Tobago House of Assembly. From the administration, we have had the I think it's not the Let's Talk Tobago, but Tobago Matters, where we're talking about how the Tobago House of Assembly work is affecting the people. And so the members of the assembly are very present, and they are leading discussions in their respective areas, and they're also talking from the political aspect as well. So they are there articulating and sharing information to members of the public and being very able to address issues as well.
All right, Mrs. Celestin, we do have to leave it there, but thank you so much for speaking with us this morning.
Thank you.
You're most welcome. Tracy Davis to Celestin, and she says they're definitely going to pay more attention to the candidates that they choose, because that was one of the sticking points for them in the last election, chose people who the people didn't want. But what a campaign there.
I was just about to say, Natalie, saying that we were laughing. It was a little invigorating, to be quite honest, because the passion with which she spoke and the emphasis in certain areas definitely took me back to election time.
Yes, I felt like it was full election season. But do know that we did invite the PDP here. They did agree to come here yesterday morning, and when I woke up 4 o'clock in the morning, I saw that the interview was cancelled at 1:21 a.m. So we give all sides the opportunity to